Witchtober 2! Electric Boogaloo!
I read a book. I read Cunning Women by Elisabeth Lee. This is my next book for Witchtober. I don't know what day it is. I don't know how Witchtober is doing. I'm trying to review a bunch of new books. I hope Witchtober is treating you well. I read a book. This is Cunning Women by Elisabeth Lee, and it's a really nice witchy book. It's a very Stacey Halls-esque historical fiction novel. It's set in the early 17th century. I think in the exact year that it's set in, Shakespeare was still alive, and you had King James's Demonology being a real book that real people actually read and took seriously as a kind of manifesto on witchcraft and black magic. As the blurb of this novel says, when it's no longer safe to call yourself a witch, you call yourself a cunning woman. It's a romance. It is a tale of forbidden love. It has real Romeo and Juliet energy. I wonder how many more times I'm going to mention Shakespeare in this video. It's about a young girl who lives in a small, run-down, broken hamlet at the edge of a slightly larger village. This hamlet has been pretty much destroyed. Their home is a shell. There's barely anything in it, and they are extremely poor. The young girl is called Sarah, and she lives with her family. Her mother, her younger sister, and that's it. And the three of them are cunning women. There is a sense of the supernatural to this. The mother is a cunning woman in the sense that the village people sometimes come to her for poultices and potions and medicine and things to help them feel better. Typically, she uses her witchy knowledge and skills for good to help people. But at the same time, they still reject her. They still fear her. They are still skeptical. And they would take any opportunity to run her out of town with torches and pitchforks. They haven't yet. And Sarah is young, I guess she's probably late teens, I don't know. And she, at the beginning of the book, has found herself with a mark on her skin. She wakes up and she's got this thing that's like a little bite or a rash, but it is his mark. And we never get the word for what he is. At first, it felt very vampire-y. Oh, she's been bitten by a Oh, she's been bitten by... Oh, she's been bitten by a vampire while she sleeps. But she hasn't been bitten by a vampire via vampire. She's been marked by Satan. That's the idea. It's the devil's mark. So it's kind of a coming of age thing. She wakes up one day with the mark of the devil, which means that she is now kind of entitled to witchhood. She is now allowed to become a witch. And she doesn't really. She just kind of goes, oh shit, I got the mark from the devil. Oh, such a pain. I hope my little sister doesn't end up with this mark too. I guess we'll see. I'll try my best to protect her. The man of the romance is this bloke called Daniel. Daniel is from the richest family in the village. They are the only farmers in the village, and the farm is the richest part of the village, and he's the farmer's son. He also has a farmhand called Gabriel, and Gabriel is really the villain of the piece. Gabriel is a horrible, horrible young man, and he kind of pushes Daniel's dad around. He's been working there so long, he's basically an adopted son, kind of a Heathcliff situation. And Gabriel is horrible, Daniel is lovely, and the dad is a bit of a pushover. Daniel is quite a catch. I guess he's supposed to be quite handsome, he's got more money than most people in the village, and so the girls seem to really like him, one girl in particular. But Daniel meets Sarah, and he has immediately his eyes set on her. Sarah also has a brother. I said at the beginning that Sarah has a little sister and a mum. She also has a brother. I forgot about him. I don't know, because he's the man. I don't know. Anyway, she has a brother, John, and John is a horrible, horrible boy. Early in the story, John is trying to steal a sheep from the local field, which is owned by Daniel and his family. He's often referred to as the little devil boy. And he is a devil boy, John. He's a horrible rapscallion. And he's trying to steal this sheep, but then Daniel doesn't confess to his dad that it was stolen by the witch's brother. It was lost or drowned or something. So Daniel's a nice guy, you know, he doesn't land Sarah's family in hot water, and this is before he even has a crush on her, so we're expected to believe he's just a nice guy. And then he develops a crush on her, and the two of them start this, not will they, won't they, because they will, romance. This slowly blossoming, forbidden love between the outcast member of the witchy Cunning Women family and the son of the rich family of the village. And that's our setup. I made a mistake while I was reading the first 100 pages of this book. I did something that I never ever do, which was go on Goodreads, which I don't even have a Goodreads anymore. I deleted it because I hate that hell site. I looked at other people's reviews and opinions. I don't really do that. I get bought in by hype. I ask for review copies or go out and buy books, and then I just read them and review them myself. But I read some comments, opinions, reviews about this book on Goodreads, and one really overarching opinion that a lot of people had was that it's a slow burn. And I disagree. Or I did disagree. And this is the problem with reading other people's opinions while you're knee-deep in a book. I was on around page 100-ish, and people were saying, nothing happens, it's boring, it's too slow. And I thought, no, I've been enjoying it very well so far. I think a lot has happened. A lot of character progression, a lot of setting. I enjoy the writing. I don't think it's slow. But then that sort of wormed its way into my head, didn't it? And then in the second half of the book, as I'm reading it, I'm like, oh, this is a bit slow, isn't it? And I'm like, did the book actually slow down? Or did I get kind of infected by other people's thoughts and opinions? I don't know. It's very difficult to sometimes formulate an opinion on something if you've got other people's opinions already dancing around in your head, taking up space. So I'm not really sure, but I can only say that I did feel like the second half wasn't as exciting as I hoped it would be, except for the very, very end. There are a lot of twists and turns in the last 20, 30 pages that really just get thrown at you again and again, and it feels like there's almost like a final battle, like in an action film or a Marvel film or whatever. But I still thought that the first half of the book was really great in terms of setting up its scene, its characters. None of them are that deeply written, and I didn't really believe in the romance either. But I didn't mind. I just enjoyed the ride. Again, like a Stacey Hall's novel, I really like the novels of Stacey Hall's. The Familiars, The Foundling, Mrs. England. These are all really charming books. They're all historical fiction. None of them are particularly thought-provoking. They're not really literary fiction. They're fun commercial fiction, and I feel like this also kind of hits that vein as well. It feels like fun commercial fiction. It's not overly deep. At times, it really reminded me of The Mercies by Kira Millward Hargrave, which I think is a very similar book to this, but smarter in its execution. There is more ambiguity. There is more depth to the characters. The characters are at times good and bad. The messages and themes have to be dug for a little bit, whereas they're very much on display here, so it kind of feels more YA in that way. So I would compare this to The Mercies in the sense that it is a feminist tale, especially when you consider the fact that a new man comes into town, a man with power and authority, which also happens in The Mercies. In The Mercies, that man is interesting because he brings his wife along, and she is caught between being subservient to him and his will, and seeing how the women on this island they've moved to are living without men. And that dichotomy is fascinating. Here, new man, new sheriff, if you like, comes into town, bolstering his way in. I believe in God, witches are evil, men are good, women are bad, all of this. It's very, very on the nose, and he's a villain, he's a bad guy. But he's more a force of nature than he is a character. But again, I didn't mind that. He's a force of nature, he's a simple to understand villain. And so is Gabriel. None of this is difficult, none of it is hard to win. It is all just on the surface, but that doesn't have to be a bad thing at all. I really enjoyed this book. I don't think it's too slow. I think that enough happens to keep it going. There is one kind of twist that happens before the midpoint, and I'm going to talk about it now because it's not one of the big main twists, and I think it allows me to talk a little bit more about the fun of this book. And it is that because she's got this devil's mark, Sarah is now able to become a fully fledged witch. And so one day she turns to her mother, after having this will they won't they with Daniel, she's kind of given up and gone, oh, I'm just going to become a witch. I tire of these humans. And so she turns to her mum and says, I want to proper be a witch now, please, mum. And she goes, okay, drink this. And her mum hands her this potion, and she goes on a trip, just has a crazy trip, and she wakes up, and only she can see this dog, and this is her familiar. The idea in this book, in Cunning Women, is that a witch's familiar is private to them. It's invisible, it's something only they can see, and her familiar is a dog, this very dangerous looking dog that she describes, and it kind of gave me chills, but it also kind of reminded me of Good Omens. She can see this dog, this is her familiar, and the dog, as the book goes on from that point, seems to take control. It's like it takes over her personality, and she becomes what people fear. In her darkest, witchiest, angriest, bitterest moments, the dog manifests and takes over her mind and her actions a little bit. And it becomes a really feisty novel from there. But the dog isn't really utilised enough. It's not like the powers of the X-Men or something. It just comes along occasionally and it's like she's trying to suppress it. So she wants to be a witch and she wants to live up to the fears and expectations that people have because she's become embittered. And I think that's interesting. But she also wants to repress it for the sake of having an ordinary life, falling in love with this young boy and just living as a human being. So there is this dichotomy between the witchcraft and the people. And what's interesting is that their fear is kind of founded upon because the witchcraft in Cunning Women is real. It's just whether or not it's something to be feared. That's the idea, is yes, the book establishes that witches are real. That doesn't mean they deserve persecution and to be chased out with pitchforks. And I think that that's a really interesting approach. I think that you can certainly bring in allegories of sexism, racism, homophobia, transphobia, whatever. The idea that yes, this minority group exists. That's true. That doesn't mean that they get to be picked on and chased and feared by the majority. And I think that's a really good message. But then Sarah also is kind of dangerous. Or could be. So that adds to the fun of it as well. Is that a mixed message? I don't know. Not sure. Perhaps I'm not supposed to think that deeply about it. I don't know. Nothing else about the book is particularly deep. It's very surface level fun, as I said. I enjoyed it though. I did. I don't think it's going to push boundaries. I don't think it's going to reinvent anything. Cunning Women is a very charming and well-written piece of historical fiction with a lot of witchy aspects to it. I think it's just fun, commercial, historical fiction, and I liked it. I think you'll like it too. It won't blow your mind, but it's a nice read. A lovely, witchy read for Witchtober. So have a good Witchtober and subscribe for books.